Yay. So, welcome, ladies. Thank you for joining me. I'm pretty excited to engage in a conversation with both of you. You've never met, which is kind of cool. Laura, this is Connie. Connie, this is Laura. Actually, this is the first time Connie and I have met in person. We actually are friends on Facebook. And I don't even remember why it came up.
I don't know. I know your husband, and you posted something about like at a luncheon, and I just sort of inquired about it, and then we went from there. So
yeah. Anyway, it's been kind of fun to get to know you a little bit. I went and checked out your website and found out more about the gluten free and food allergy specialist. And Laura is a nutritionist as well as a personal trainer, right? So she helps people with nutrition and working out. So I personally have had a little journey with food allergies. I guess what started my whole inquiry into the whole conversation or topic really was not that I had any issues that I knew of. It was more about that I had already switched my water. I had kind of, started to up-level my health, getting off of coffee, different things like that.
right.
And I noticed that something like that could make such a shift for me in the way I felt. I was like, wow, well, what if I took more focus on my food? What would that look like? And so I went to a functional medicine doctor and actually worked with her and it was really cool the way she actually worked it, because we did the blood work. So it's 100 little Petri dishes, the particular test that she uses. And then she introduces your blood to those different or different foods to those blood samples, and they grow for 6 weeks. So that you're really getting the full spectrum of what is happening, where the inflammation response happens. And so I think had I been just given the science with a little card that says you're allergic, here's the rate of inflammation that occurs when you eat these items, I think I would have been like, whatever. But simultaneously, I also did a elimination diet where I took everything that was potentially inflammatory out of my system. And then gradually, once I was fairly clean system after 6 weeks, I started adding stuff back in slowly in very I was measuring. I knew exactly, like, there's nothing else going in except for gluten or egg or whatever it was. And then I felt the responses in my body, right? So I started to see, oh yeah, so that little headache thing that I used to just put up with because I thought it was, I don't know, whatever, it's just part of getting
Normal
older.
stress.
Yeah, I was like, whatever. It doesn't happen. Like I could already see where taking some of those things out actually made a difference. So when I was checking the science behind the little Petri dishes and what this card was telling me, what was happening in my body with what was actually happening in my body, it was a really good case for me to go, maybe I'll consider this whole food allergy or intolerance thing is a real thing. So I'm totally intrigued by the conversation and love to hear what both of you guys and your experiences with it, especially since we're coming up upon Thanksgiving. And wow, everybody seems to indulge in all the yummy stuff during Thanksgiving. I know my family, here's what they told me. Holidays. You're not going to eat, you eat healthy all the other times, but we're not going to accommodate you. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, fair enough, I guess. So anyway, why don't who wants to start? You guys just tell me who has something to contribute to that? Like, where are you on your journey?
I'll start.
Okay.
So, I mean, my journey actually started about 6 years ago. And actually, my boyfriend actually really helped me figure out that I was gluten intolerant. From like a weekend, we were eating pasta, pizza, and then the next day I ate crab cakes at work. And I came home and I was just miserable. Like, I had abdominal cramps, I was nauseated, I had a headache, and I just felt horrible. And I literally had to lay down because I couldn't function. Is that echoing, or can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay. So from that, he was just like, he suggested that I go gluten-free, and I had no idea what gluten was, but his friend was gluten intolerant, so it was strictly a hunch. So I took that out, and I started feeling better, but I never really started feeling good again. So I went to a functional doctor, one of our friends suggested, and he helped me a little bit. Like, he helped me figure out I was allergic to corn and milk as well, and that was celiac. So I'm like the high spectrum of gluten intolerance. So like, if a speck of dust gets in my area, I'm like down for like, I used to be down for a month. I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, and I started going through this journey, like trying to find a functional doctor that really knew his stuff around it. And just, I was spending hours upon hours on the internet looking around everything around gluten and food allergy I could find. So, you know, the hidden sources, anything I could find about it, because I wasn't feeling great and I didn't want to keep living like this. It just wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally found my doctor on a blog he wrote about corn, because one of my doctors kept telling me I wasn't allergic to corn, and I knew when I ate it within 30 minutes and I got sick that it was making me sick. I just knew it. Yeah. The doctor I found is in Sugar Land, and his niche is gluten intolerance and food allergies, everything around that. So finally with him and like all the knowledge I just gained over like 3 years trying to find the right doctor and just being on the internet for, you know, hours and, you know, anything I could get my hands on. With his protocol, I finally got well. I found out I had leaky gut and probably leaky brain as well. So once I started healing my gut, then I had to also get rid of the parasites and, you know, candida, all that fun stuff that was just basically having a party down in my gut. You know, after 40 something years, right? So they didn't want to leave. And, you know, finally about 2 years ago, I really got healthy and like, you know, I could be active. I had to, you know, rebuild my body again, basically, and my mindset around food. And just out of that, like, I sort of became the expert in, you know, just sort of word of mouth. Like everyone that knows me knew my, that I struggled with this for a while, and they're like, if you want to know anything, they just sent people to me. You know, if they ran across people had problems, somebody had questions, they came to me. And finally, Tobin just went, you know, why don't you start a business around coaching people on this, or, you know, doing products? So that's how I ended up where I am now.
Yeah, what a story. And how about you, Laura? Like, what is your experience with personally or with your clients? Because I know that you see a lot of people and have to have this conversation.
Yeah, mine's going to be a little different because I'm fortunate enough not to have sensitivity to gluten. But yeah, I think what's good to note is that there's a wide range, you know, that there's a spectrum. And I think you both touched on that you can have a sensitivity on one end where you notice maybe some really mild symptoms. Maybe you have a skin rash, or maybe you have an itchy scalp, or maybe you have a runny nose, all the way down to full-blown painful gut, writhing on the floor, and everything in between. So I think when we talk about food allergies or sensitivities, just to remind the listeners out there that just because, you know, you can eat bread doesn't necessarily mean, you know, one thing or the other. It doesn't mean it's absolutely the best thing for your body, but it also doesn't necessarily mean, you know, you're not gluten sensitive if you're able to ingest it. And so what you were mentioning about the elimination of different foods, that's usually if I have a client that's kind of suspecting that something is not sitting well with their system, that's usually where we start. And I think that's a really good starting place. Again, if there's a listener out there where they feel like they have a sensitivity or they have a concern with the food, their first step really is to just go ahead and remove it for about 2 weeks and to take a look at what are the results? You know, does their energy change? Is there a skin condition? Does that change? Do they notice a difference after a meal? Do they notice better sleep, worse sleep? And to kind of use themselves as their own experiment. So we are the experts of our own body. We know what's going on, even when the doctors say, no, you're fine. You're not celiac. that's not necessarily true. You may have a sensitivity, maybe it's a mild one, but it's up to us to take control of our health care and to investigate it. And the best way to do that is for us to experiment a little bit, and just like you were saying, removing one thing at a time or adding one thing at a time. And again, looking around what happens in that situation and getting the feedback from that, and using that information to inform where you go next, whether it's you do seek out medical care or a functional medicine doctor or a coach to help you further along with your process.
Yeah. I think also it's like, it's very difficult to know exactly how that piece of bread that's going in your mouth this moment is actually reacting in your body, because sometimes the delayed reaction can be, several days or up to a week. And so it's really hard to quantify what that piece of bread is actually doing in your body, the way that we've been trained to think about, when I put my hand on the fire, I get burned. So I immediately know what that response is.
Yeah. And the other thing too is like, there actually are people, and Tobin is one of them, his doctor told him, like, it's asymptomatic, where people have no, outward reactions at all. So, gluten could be bothering them, and they would never know because they just don't have any symptoms actually. And there's no way to test for that at this point. And it's strictly a guess. And for him, it's, for the people that have that and they sort of figure it out, it's sort of like the elimination diet, where, you just take it out. And then if you eat it again, you just, you feel bloating or however it affects you, like IBS, some people it does, right, or whatever happens. But that's really the only way to know about that one, unfortunately, at this point. So,
one of the things that I noticed was, which seems even crazier, right? So you start doing this whole elimination thing, right? So gluten, dairy, soy. Like for me, the dairy was definitely phlegm. And you don't really notice it. Like, it doesn't even seem like a big deal until you're off of it. And then all of a sudden, whoa, I have that phlegm. Like, it doesn't seem to be necessarily something that's an issue, right? It's just more of an inconvenience. But when you think about that, it's causing so much irritation and inflammation inside my body that I'm able to express it, right? So like something serious is going on the insides.
Yeah.
And then tomatoes and peppers was another one, like nightshades, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't really even consider, like, how could that possibly be an inflammatory food? Like, I just didn't make sense. And I noticed when I eat a lot of that, I have joint pain. It's not a lot, but I do notice, like, when I get up in the night, that my ankles are stiffer than normal. And I'm like, oh, wow, you know what? And when I did the elimination diet, I knew that was one of the symptoms, right? So now I can go back and go, oh, yeah, I have that pain, or not really pain, but I have that stiffness in my joints. And that must be because I had those tomatoes the other day, right? So I find it interesting.
And my doctor actually uses a food allergy test, but a very specific one. He's tested, like, he's been in practice for 15 years. So he's tested the accuracy of like pretty much all of them out on the market. And he uses, it's ELISA, ELISA. So it actually works really well. And he's actually customized his own version of it now. But elimination diets, I mean, some people use them, some don't. But like, I don't know if they would have helped me figure out everything I have allergies to, because I'm allergic to pork and apricot, which are very off the wall allergies and aren't common. So it's hard to say. And if you keep eating stuff that's making, you're allergic to and you don't know it, it just creates more problems, basically. So, yeah. Yeah. So I think it's really not black and white area, and that's why a lot of people get confused, and why a lot of doctors don't know how to, deal with it, basically, or tell their patients, or just tell you there's nothing wrong with you, right? Because they can't find it, and then they just haven't been trained in that area. So, and Laura's probably dealt, I don't know, a lot with that. Patients, have you had a lot of clients come to you after they've gone to doctors and they haven't been able to help them, or?
Some, yeah. And so again, I encourage them to read, research, and seek the best medical care for them. So again, going to someone like a functional medicine or someone that's outside of traditional medical practice. And like you were saying, go to a specialist, someone that's in that area, so that you can get more specialized information, because most doctors only have, best case scenario, maybe a semester of nutrition.
Yeah.
And
Not
they
very
usually
much at
say
all.
very helpful things to overweight people, like eat less and move more. Or to people that are having gut problems, you're probably just stressed. Let's put you on Prozac.
Right.
So, yeah, that's great.
So
Yeah.
usually more medicine doesn't help.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I want to say just to the listeners too, is like, it's like what you were talking about earlier, Brandy, things that you think are just normal that are caused from stress or getting older, or I don't know, whatever you have in there. Because that's how I felt for years. I mean, I just thought it was a stress because I hated my job and I wasn't that happy overall in my life. And, and I literally, like, I was brain fog all the time, like for so long, like I just couldn't remember. Someone would tell me something and it would just sort of wisp away. And it was just like you'd either wrote it down so you could remember it, what somebody asked you to do, or because my head was foggy all the time and I had no idea why. And it was, for me, since, I don't know, like I can only speak because I'm celiac, but like, since my body wasn't getting nutrients because I had leaky gut, like I was constantly hungry. It just didn't matter how much I ate. And, like I actually had to gain weight once I got healthy, which I know, throws people off, and it varies for people, right? If they want to lose weight or gain weight, but in my case. So, yeah. So, I mean, and the symptoms are just there's so many symptoms people can have. And depression is one of the big ones as well, too.
Yeah, it really is.
That's a really good point, Connie, because I think some of the listeners might not have heard earlier, some of the folks that are just logging in, that you mentioned that you had leaky gut. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, the lining of our small intestine has a little break and we have leakage, and that's where you get all that inflammation. But the big thing about leaky gut is you're not absorbing your nutrients. You can be eating all the best foods in the world. You can be eating tons of calories and you can still be malnourished. You can still be underweight as well. And so, like you said, it does look like, it may look like on the outside something completely different than what you're expecting. It's hard to pin down.
Yeah, it is. And even like, a lot of people, I mean, how they manifest themselves, like environmental allergies. I mean, Tobin's another example. Like he found out he had some food allergies, and he's taken them out, and like his environmental allergies have like, like they're 50% better now than they were. So, I mean, it shows up in people in all kinds of different ways. And I mean, we have so many other different things to deal with besides food allergies our bodies do. It's really hard to say for sure, everything. But yeah, and it manifests with different people in different ways as well. So like, and autoimmune diseases too are another way that it shows up for a lot of people. So yeah.
Well, and I think your mention about the brain fog as well as depression. So I think some people don't realize that the main place that serotonin is produced is in our gut.
Yeah.
And so if our gut is not functioning properly, then we're not getting the chemicals to our brain that make us feel happy and healthy and productive.
Right.
And that brain fog also can be a confusing symptom, I think, for people, because they may think, oh, well, I didn't get enough sleep, or, oh, I've been really stressed about a job, or, oh, maybe I haven't been exercising enough. So you kind of have to go down a few paths first before you can eliminate those, before you even get to looking at food.
Yeah, you do. And even like simple things like being bloated or sleepy after you eat a certain thing were things that happened to me too. So, I mean, a lot of people think those are just, and turkey is a good one. And yeah, because of and it can make you sleepy, but I mean, a lot of foods don't make you sleepy. I mean, and just, if your gut, like you're talking about, if it's going out in your bloodstream, it's doing all kinds of really nasty things that your body's is not good for you. So, but yeah, so I got tired and sleepy even after eating sometimes, it affected me all kinds of ways. Like I said, I'm like I'm the high tolerance type, celiac, which is Laura, gluten sensitivity or brandy is not the same thing, but you can have similar symptoms. And things that people really pass off as just being old or stressed or something, like I really encourage people to take a step back and like find a, functional doctor that knows a lot about or go to a blog, or something, or just somewhere that you can get information about this and just check it out, because it's probably not something that is normal for you like we all perceive it to be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And that way you can catch it before it goes something, I don't know, more sense of something a lot larger.
Yeah, like autoimmune.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. Right. I think if we catch it quick enough and pay attention to what our body's telling us, then we can definitely, cut some of that off. Some of the going down that road. I'm wondering about, people. So what are some of the things that you do eat? Like if you're like, I'm seeing here, definitely if you're celiac, right? I know what even started this conversation was you were wanting to come to a networking event, and the question came up, well, it's a luncheon, so they're serving food. And so I don't really go to those events because I'm celiac, and they probably are not going to manage it tight enough that it makes sense for me to even risk it, right? Like that's what I kind of understood from your post.
Yeah. I approach it different ways, and this is why I educate my clients and people in, like, ask the question, right? If they're serving food, and a lot of times this is sort of new to me, going to networking events that serves. So a lot of times I choose, like, a lot of them actually you can bring your own food, or you can talk to the person who's in charge of the food and have a conversation with them, and then decide if if there's enough clarity, if there's not. So a lot of times for me, events like that, it's if a lot of people handling food, and sometimes I just choose not to do it because it works better for me like that. But if I don't, even then sometimes I'll go to events and just not eat. But that's strictly how I handle things. And it's one of the things I run into with people all the time, my clients elsewise, like a lot of people just won't go out and eat, won't even go to events anymore, which it doesn't work for me. I want people to be able to go out, have that choice, right? And not just sit at home, not go out with their friends or family and enjoy an event, or go even to dinner or something, which people go, just do to relax because they're scared about getting sick, which I totally get it, but I can totally guide people on how they can really cut down that risk and, have fun and eat with ease.
Most people tell me that they think whenever I tell them that I'm gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, egg-free, sugar-free, alcohol-free, caffeine-free, they're like, good God, what do you eat?
Yeah.
And so it's been like trying to shift people's perceptions about that for myself. And so I host salons with one of my girlfriends, which is how I know Laura. And for me, like one of the important parts of that is having an event where they can come and have food that's aware of all the sensitivities out there, and have it not like making it a big deal, like, ooh, you're going to come and you're going to eat this food. It's more about, we're going to take care of anybody that has those types of allergies. And I promise it's still going to be tasty, even if it doesn't have all those things. And still at my salons where I'm making stuff, like I really have put together a cookbook and different recipes and stuff that work. And so I try to serve those things. But even with that said, I've still had salons where people come in and they're like, oh, I can't eat that because they're allergic to chia seeds, right? Or like something that I'm thinking is completely like totally healthy, right? And it's like, oh shoot, I'm so sorry. Like I made these awesome little banana parfaits with chia seeds and fruit, and she was like, oh, I don't eat chia seeds. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can you imagine taking that out too? All right, let me get back to the drawing board on those recipes.
And it happens. Like my philosophy is like, there's good food for you, but it's not good for everybody. And one of the things Tobin's allergic to is olives. Olive oil, he can't have any of that. So, it's like, it just depends on the people and your body and what you're talking about, making things really great to eat. Like our philosophy now is like, we eat better now than we did. My doctor used to have potlucks before he became so busy, like, And he had it where everyone cooked their dish and then they put the recipe so you could see what ingredients were on it. So you could like walk through it and see, you know, if you could eat it or not, which is great. And it was awesome because there were so many different foods and things that you never thought about how to cook something. And we've actually taken that on, and, you know, I've taken on teaching, educating people, and I'm coming out with a 21-day guide for people newly diagnosed that has recipes and things like that to show you that you can eat and make it real easy. Because basically we eat paleo because what I've learned across my journey and from my doctor is like all grains have gluten, and I actually became allergic to other grains. So like that's the only way I've gotten healthy, and that's a way I've seen a lot of other people, you know, because the gluten from other grains isn't, I mean, they're all different, but it's there and it causes inflammation. So, you know, there's starting to be more scientific research around that, Laura, if you're interested. But yeah, so I mean, it all makes a difference for people, and I don't know, just their bodies are all a little different, and like our sensitivity is just a little bit different. And, you know, it's hard to say why we freak out over foods, but I think some of it's because of how it's raised. And
absolutely. I agree with
modified you. Nowadays.
True. I read a great article recently. I was trying to put my hands on it. I found another one today, but they're looking now at your microbiome, which is all of the bacteria within your body, primarily your gut, but it's all of the different sources of the bacteria. And they are seeing a connection between celiac and the type of healthy bacteria that's naturally occurring in your body.
Yeah.
And there's also talk about transfers of that bacteria, which is it's not a very dinner-worthy conversation, but it sounds like there is and they've looked at it for other things as well. For people that are intolerant with dairy or intolerant to any other things, they may not have the right bacteria that helps their body process it.
Right.
So to me, the fact that they're starting to learn that there's hopefully on the horizon potential remedies that might be a little weird, but still natural, that might be able to help people one day enjoy some of the things that they, you know, may miss from their diet, even though they're not missing the pain or the discomfort. But I was reading that the other day, and I thought, that's fantastic. That's really good to know that there's so many different strains of bacteria. And I thought it was fascinating that your body actually borrows the genetic material from that bacteria, borrows its DNA to add to ours to make our bodies function. So I feel like nutrition's just on the edge of discovering really great things. I just don't feel like there's been enough research because it doesn't fit, you know, the pharmaceutical model of
exactly.
Let's just prescribe them something else and we'll all make some money.
Totally. You know, what I found was, so I can feel bloated and foggy and all those things that we've talked about, right? Eating bread here. And then my husband and I go to Italy and we eat pasta and bread with every meal and like just these amazing, truly decadent meals in Italy. And I have no issues. And so it really occurred to me like, isn't that interesting? It's about the source and about like the farming practices that are put in place. And it's definitely eye-opening for people to realize like what is our system doing to the food that we're eating, and what is that process? Because I know you had mentioned that, and I definitely wanted to throw that in there, that we're definitely not eating the same food that we used to be, or that other countries are eating, because they have different rules in place.
Yeah. And it's interesting how other people are really attached to, I mean, one of the things I encountered, and even, you know, people I coach, like, people are attached to how you eat if you're not eating the same as them. And it can become very disempowering at times. I mean, for, you know, that person, right? And because you don't have that support or love, like, and I was very fortunate, like I had great support from Toe, but then some of our friends, not so supportive. Like, I mean, I literally lost friendships over how I ate because I was eating to be healthy, and I wasn't making them do it. And it was like, I wasn't going to switch because I got sick the other way. So it made no sense, you know? So like, but they literally just could not like grasp why we were eating like clean, organic, and just switched to stuff, right? I mean, yeah, and some people will have a hard time to do that. I mean, but then, other people can just, be with it and not care. So it's really interesting across the board. So, yeah. And that's one thing I usually coach people on. And I even noticed it when I went out with my friends my friend had a birthday last week, and we went out to dinner with a bunch of her girlfriends. And it was like a lot of those people were gluten-free, dairy-free, but they were sort of like, if I cheat once, it doesn't hurt my body, and which is not true at all. It still it's still hurting you even if you don't feel it. But how they were really just sort of casual about it, and like really were like, like it was a diet. Like if I cheat on it, it's not going to hurt me. And it just really, I'm a stand to educate people around that, because it just really just empowers people really if they're getting really sick from it. And I don't know, it's just a big misconception out there too. It keeps people sick, and years later they're going to find out it caused something else, like Laura would probably too. I don't know, autoimmune diseases keep coming up, right? But that's just, one of the huge things people don't realize that comes up from like gluten is like one of the causes, because of the inflammation and it causes other things worse than that even too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, I'm fascinated to sit down with people at dinner and just watch how they eat, the pacing, as well as there's become this moral equivalency with food, and there's judgment with food, and there's food pushers. There's people that are wanting you to eat what they're eating.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or they're questioning while you're not eating what they're eating. And, you may sit down and just try to carry on about your business and fix your plate and not say a thing about whatever your program is. And people want to know why you're doing what you're doing. Well, why didn't you get any gravy?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it contains gluten and I'm really sensitive and it makes me sick. A little bit won't hurt you.
Yeah.
And again, it's really not about you and what you're having on your plate. It's usually about the narrative that's going on, internally. And that's something I've got clients that struggle with a lot. That we call them the food pushers.
I like that term, Laura.
The food pushers.
I'll have to borrow that one from you. I hadn't thought about that, but that's really accurate,
Yeah, and it's because you're stepping outside of a societal norm, because food is such a celebratory, it's such a communal function that if you're not doing what everyone else is doing, if you're, marching to the beat of your own drummer, the rest of the group is wanting to rein you in because it feels uncomfortable to them. I went on a girls' night out with a bunch of older ladies, friends of mine that I know through the gym. And I just had water and I think I had a little bit of a salad. Well, what they didn't know was I had eaten a steak and some really great vegetables at home earlier, close to that time. Well, I wasn't drinking alcohol. The red wine gives me a headache. They love to drink red wine. I didn't want the white wine. I don't like the food at that restaurant. I think it's terrible, but I wanted their company. So I went there to partake of their company, and that, socially that wasn't enough. And so circle back around a couple of days later, one of them had told her husband, who was a training client. And so I have him in the gym and he's like, hey, how was your girls' night out? I was like, oh, it was so nice. It was good to see the ladies. And he goes, my wife's worried about you. She's worried that you become anorexic because you're not eating. And I said, I beg your pardon. I was like, Tom, I had a 6-ounce steak and I had broccoli and I had a half of a sweet potato, like 2 hours before I got there. Like I wasn't hungry. So I just have to remind myself that, with those food pushers, they don't necessarily see your whole picture.
Yeah.
Right.
And even if you reveal your whole picture to them, they may not understand it.
Yeah.
So really just being polite and just shutting down the conversation and diverting it sometimes is your best option.
Yeah.
Thanks for the gravy, but no thanks. Oh, how's your daughter doing in college?
Yeah.
Move on.
Or if they're really interested, then you can take the opportunity to educate. But that really depends, like you're talking about, if they're really interested or if it's just going to a place that's going to be a dead end. So, and just to touch on family is sometimes one of the hardest places, Brandy, to manage this at. I know my brother and my mom totally thought I was just lying, like this didn't really affect me and wouldn't have, because they just didn't understand enough about it, right, is what it really boiled down to. And I literally told them, like, I can't eat like this. It's going to make me really sick. And long-term wise, I was like, I'm not willing to put my health down that road. And I said, Tobin and I made a deal basically, you know, with them when we're at their houses, we cook. It's just, I mean, you know, you have to do your own negotiating with your family what works for you, right? But that's just what works in our case, because otherwise my mom was just throwing stuff together and we would ask her what's in it and she would just like, I don't know. So it's sort of like a free-for-all, which definitely does not work for me, you know, to eat because, and she just didn't understand it. But after that, like, this was back like 6 years ago, so there wasn't a lot of conversation about it. I mean, we didn't even have gluten-free aisle in the store, which is not a good thing necessarily now even, right? But it wasn't as well known and like thrown around terms. So like we literally do that, and that's what we still do this day just because it works. And the funny thing is, like, Brandy, when you're talking about your family telling you, well, you're eating healthy all the time, you have to eat healthy at Thanksgiving, like we make stuff for them and they're just like, really? You know, like cinnamon rolls, but they're like not made with, you know, they're made with almond flours and different things now that we've discovered. And like we picked on recipes, they're so good. Like, you know, people go back for seconds. We'll have crock pots and like certain foods, like we make a pizza, like people would not touch our food before a couple of years ago. Now people go back second and thirds. Like we have no food left from our dishes we make. It's hilarious. So I've seen a lot of people convert their diets over the last couple of years because they started figuring out other things aren't working for them, which
Right.
yeah, it's sort of interesting.
You know, I think that's really smart. Oh, sorry, Brandy.
No,
I think that's really smart, Brandy, Connie, what you brought up, that, you know, when you are making some sort of change in your nutrition, whether it's for medical reasons, health reasons, or whatever reasons, you know, number one, finding support.
Yeah.
Finding
Very
support,
important.
you know, whether it's your spouse or a friend or a group, finding support. And then number two, having some honest conversations with the people that you're going to be having meals with that you feel like you can trust.
Yeah.
And then also taking a little bit more control, and having, food is such a big package. I mean, for so many people, it's a love offering. When they cook for you, they're showing that they love you. So to tell like a mom that she can't cook for you, that's hard for her.
Yeah.
So to have a hard conversation, but in a loving way, and then the way that you found your own solution, setting yourself up for being successful, you know, by cooking, and then you're returning those years that your mom's cooked for you. You know, you're sharing the love, and you're exposing them to some new ideas and some new foods. And it's becoming a super positive thing as opposed to, oh, the gluten sensitive person's here.
Yeah.
But instead, yay, she's here and she's cooking.
Exactly. So like at Christmas when we go home to my mom's, and now it's like, she's like, I don't have to cook when they're here. It's beautiful.
That's great.
Awesome.
You've given her a gift. Yeah, you've given your mom a great gift.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted, that it comes up for me quite often in conversation, right, when I'm talking with people about being gluten-free or something, and y'all mentioned it a while ago, going down the gluten-free aisle, which isn't necessarily gluten-free, and I see this so often. I know working with my functional medicine doctor, there's a list of the hidden things that we don't really know what they are that are actually gluten. And so, they're on her, when I was doing my elimination diet, it was like, oh, you can't have these things. And I'm like, why? And I had to figure out, like, okay, so there's a lot of extra sneaky words that also are gluten. Yeah. And so the conversation that I recently had was with, what was it about? It was something, I know, coffee. They were doing their coffee. And they were like, oh, well, I still have to do my coffee, but I do it with an almond milk or a coconut milk or something. And I was like, oh, yeah. And she goes, yeah, they've got some really great ones on the market. And I was like, yeah, I know. I used to really love the one that's called So Delicious.
Yeah.
Like, and then I
used to buy that brand.
Yeah, and then you do a little more research and you look on it, you're like, oh, it has carrageenan, it has, some of them have dextrose and like all these other things, which are words for gluten. And it's like, now how did they just sneak that into something that's like supposedly healthy? And obviously this woman that I was talking to thought she was like being super healthy, even though she's drinking her coffee. She had found a way to make it work for herself. And now here I am being Debbie Downer, telling her that the coconut milk that she's using actually still has some things in it that she probably may not be thinking she's getting. That she doesn't want.
And there's actually other things that your gut can see as gluten, even though it's not, like, and cause a cross reaction. So, yeah, my doctor's like, he keeps doing research. So it's like, it's just a wealth of information me. And it helps me keep up for clients and actually putting information out there, right? Like all the gums, like xanthan gum, you know, and even coffee can cause a cross reaction in some people, like, depending on their level of sensitivity. And usually he just tells them that, you know, you keep it out for like 6 to 8 weeks, I think, you know, just to give your gut the chance to get healed, right? And then you can, you know, try it again. But there's a lot of stuff that causes cross reaction too, which is a problem. And carrageenan, like, is seaweed, but after they process it so much, it's not healthy. And it actually can mimic and cause cross reactions. And something I just found out about too is quinoa. Quinoa can do the same thing. It can cause a cross reaction in your gut, like gluten does. So it can do damage.
Absolutely. I saw that. We looked up quinoa. My husband's like, well, what is it? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's a grain. And so we're like,
grain.
No. Let's go look at it. And so we looked it up. And when he looked at the process that it takes to actually get us the little grain in the...
Probably not good, right?
No, it's like, look it up on Wikipedia. You will be appalled at the process that it takes for us to get quinoa, which is supposedly so healthy. So it's like crazy, the things, like the more research you do, the more you're like, oh my gosh.
Xanthan gum's like that too. If you look up how they process it, they do it through so much chemicals. It's like, you're just sort of like, oh, why would I want that in my food? So, and it sounded like you were going to say something, Laura, just a minute ago.
Oh, I was just going to say, it sounds like we've already got some really good takeaways for people who are approaching Thanksgiving. So some ideas were bring your own food.
Yes.
Or show up and cook your own food. Focus on whole foods.
Yes.
And avoid anything that probably came out of a bottle or a box, because they tend to have additives that tend to have gluten in them.
Yeah, and even if they don't have gluten, they're not really going to help you get well. So, like toxins and chemicals, So, but those are really good tips. One thing I always add too is, like, I encourage people to take, like, you know, whole, like a dessert maybe, right? If it's, you know, sort of introduce people. And a lot of times people taste something and they'll be like, oh, that's not too bad. And dessert's like an easy thing to get people to try, right? But it's a way to sort of, it's sneaky. It is, but you know, I found you educate people and they start, you know, it's a lot easier to be around them and to eat with them and hang out with them, especially if they're people you really want to hang out with, right? And do stuff with. It's just a lot easier. So, and you know, it's just a way to educate people, and then it's sort of a ripple effect. You know, the education just sort of lingers out there, so that a lot of these myths around, which you probably hear a lot, Laura, and even Brandy, around, you know, gluten and stuff, like, you know, it's just total misconceptions created out of pharma, or the, you know, probably the food industry itself. But yeah.
Well, ladies, let's wrap it up. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we get off, like about the holidays or about gluten or things to watch out for, or just what you stand for and why you think it's important? Any of those kind of things.
I'll go first. I'll let you have the last word, Connie. I think it's important to remember, like I said before, that you are the expert of your body. You know your body best. You trust your intuition over any well-meaning doctor when you're trying to figure out what works best for you. And also, as you approach the holiday table, you know, keep in mind that food is love. That's the first message we ever got as babies. Food is love, mother is food, food is mother. And so it's supposed to be a celebration of enjoyment. So where are you on your continuum? You know, if you are way, way over here, and if you are able to, you know, make a small, slightly better change this year, so you don't necessarily have to go 100% whole food and do everything perfectly, aside from being celiac. I know that it's, we're not talking about a whole situation where, we're not trying to get you to move along a continuum if you're celiac and trying quinoa to see if you have a reaction at Thanksgiving. But for those of you that are, working on improving your nutrition, how can you do one thing just a little bit better at Thanksgiving this year? And maybe that involves you bringing some, new recipe so that you know that you've tried something new and you've stretched yourself just a little bit. So, and I just want to thank you for having me tonight, Brandy.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you. And thanks for those words. That's awesome.
Great tips.
Great tips. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How about you, Connie? What are you thinking?
Like Laura gave great tips. And really, I mean, what I encourage people to do, especially if they're, think they might be, gluten sensitive or anything like that, or if you are and you're newly diagnosed, because that's really the people I work with, because I just know it's not always easy. Some people have an easy time do it, but then some people really struggle with it. And that's why I started my business, actually. Really take baby steps. Like, people try to switch so many things, like, at first, and, just take one or two things is what I always encourage people to do. Because otherwise you're going to start feeling overwhelmed and frustrated and confused with the whole deal, and just throw your hands up and probably, eat something that you shouldn't eat, and it's going to make you really sick. So that's one of the things I really encourage people to do. And my biggest tip is, I think along Laura's line too, is take your own food. If you're going somewhere where they really aren't familiar with gluten-free or whatever your food allergies are, and you're just going to be a lot safer, and take a couple of dishes with you, and you're going to have something to eat, and take a little extra, share it with people, show them that you're eating better than they probably are, and and they'll probably be really surprised how good your food's taste. And that's usually why people, your family will start going, oh, it's not so bad when she comes, she brings this great food, right? So
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you guys both for coming. I think one of the biggest things that I would want to leave people with is that you both have already touched on it, really. It's like, know your body, check in with your intuition and know what's right for you personally, because just because I'm allergic to eggs doesn't mean that the next person over is going to be allergic to eggs. And so I think honoring everybody and where they are in their journey, their food journey, is a great thing. I think also it's about putting a structure in place that has you be successful. I know right now I'm about to run a program called Breakfast with Brandy, which is that baby step, like, let's get you started to thinking clearer. We actually start on November 30th, which is the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So, we have registration open for that, but it's really just a structure, because without a structure for how we're going to succeed, creating a plan, like, what am I going to take to Thanksgiving, we won't be successful. So it's like, really, what is that structure? What is the plan that we're going to put in place? And then the other part, which is, these are all the tenets for living powerfully, and what I stand for is raising your awareness, and that's educating yourself. And both of you ladies are great resources to raise your awareness and really learn about your body, learn about food, like how it's impacting us, learning how it's the farming practices. So anyway, it's like really raising your awareness. It's being in tune with your intuition, and it's about putting structures in place that have you take consistent action towards whatever it is that you are creating in your life. So thank you so much, and I guess we'll call it a wrap.
All right,
have a great week, ladies.
You too. Thanks, Brandy.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah. Eat well,
ladies.
That's right.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.